Hello everyone, this is FantasyEsque and welcome to the Vampire Amazon Family Tree. Today we are going to be getting a refresher on the Sims within a certain role and how they are connected, perhaps by family, some not so much. Now, yes, this is called a family tree because it's the closest thing to a family tree and role summary / succession that we are going to get. I simply have way too many characters to actually go through every single bloodline we've ever had. So I'm not even trying to do that. Instead, I am sticking, and some bloodlines, you know, they stay, they die. So I am sticking instead to the roles and the Sims that succeed those roles in each generation. And then I am, where possible, going to track the family trees within those roles. And because it's role specific, there's some branches of the family tree that we won't necessarily see in one go, and we'll see segments of them throughout the video in different slides that they're relevant to. But let's dive into it. Now please note that this video only tracks the 3 most recent generations of each role. That is because, like I said, too many Sims. When I finish this whole saga in Generation 10, we're probably going to have like an hour-long video where I go through the roles and all the Sims that have served in it from Generation 1 to 10. But now, though, I think the 3 most recent ones will be enough to give us an idea of what's happening and where we are at, and, you know, get us on board for the next generation so we won't be nearly as confused, hopefully. So that is what we are working with. Also, I do not track the sons that were born. I only track the daughters. What else? The rest we'll kind of figure out as we go. And also, I'll try and make this really quick. The last family tree video I had was like 30 minutes because I feel as though I went too much into the stories. I'll try not to do that this time around and just stick to who succeeds who, so we can be concise. But okay, let's start off with the royal line, the royal bloodline. So, like I said, we're tracking Generation 4, 5, and 6 for the immortal lines. So these are the vampires. And for the Alchemist, they are mortal, they're not immortal. So they have kind of a different breakdown of the generations for them. But let's see if we can simplify how to decode like the slides, which, you know, you guys can pause and take a look at on your own if you want. So the purple names are the Sims that are deceased as of the time I'm making this video, so going off the last episode that I recorded where we ended the season. So the purple names are the ones who are deceased. The dark brown names are the Sims who are currently alive. The ones with the light brown outlines are the Sims who have inherited, or they have succeeded, they've succeeded in their role. So they've, you know, gotten the title. Yeah. So they've, like, served in that role. The heads of that role. Whatever you want to call it. The crowns. So they'll also have a symbol underneath them. So usually the one with the light brown highlights are going to have a symbol underneath them. The dark brown symbols mean that they are the first in their generation to hold that role, and then later on we're going to start seeing purple symbols. So purple symbols mean that the Sim has inherited their role from someone in the same generation that has died. So they're not the first person to have that role in that generation. They got it from someone else who died unexpectedly. So got that, and then the black lines are the lines tracing direct lineages, so like family trees, right? So if they have like black lines, that's connecting the family tree, right? Now another thing over here, like I said, we're dealing with direct lineages. So a bunch of us know that Zelda has, you know, she's had daughters and she has granddaughters, so obviously that's continuing. But I'm not tracking it here because this is only for the direct royal line that I'm tracing. So Zelda will have a separate slide for, you know, her family members when we get to the slide which is relevant to her. So okay, let's dive right in. And this is like the third time doing this. The past 2 times I have noticed mistakes in these slides that I've had to go back and fix. Hopefully this time around everything is good. But okay, Generation 4, we had 3 princesses. We had Wisteria Salazar, Zelda Salazar, twins, and then we had the younger sister, Isadora Salazar. Now, collectively, these princesses challenged their mother, Queen Athena, 4 times before Wisteria emerged as the victor. So Wisteria lost the first time, Zelda lost, Isadora lost, then Wisteria had another chance and she won. So she became queen. And then Wisteria had 1 daughter. She just had Princess Aphrodite Salazar. Now, Aphrodite didn't have any sisters to compete with, but she challenged her mother once, and she won, so she was pretty badass. And she became the queen in Generation 5. Aphrodite had twin daughters. She had Eden and Guinevere Salazar. Now, collectively, they challenged Aphrodite 7 times. So Eden challenged her mother 4 times, and then Guinevere challenged her mother 3 times. So they basically went back and forth until Eden had her 4th battle, and then Eden won. So Aphrodite it took 7 battles to like bring her down. So Eden is going to be our queen in Generation 6. So going to the Broodmother line. So this is where we start seeing some of the disconnect between the Sims and like ones who have not continued their bloodlines and so and so. Now in Generation 4, Rowan Cavador was our broodmother. She inherited the role from her own mother, which is why she has the brown symbol. Now she, I'm pretty sure, had the trait hates children, so we never even got her to try for offspring. So the Cavador bloodline, which is one of the ancient bloodlines, actually died with her. Quite sad, quite sad. But it died with her. Now she got pulled into a rebellion, which, you know, she didn't even take part, but she got caught up in it unfairly, and then she got accused unjustly of being a traitor, and she was executed. So after her, Anya Frostbite was brought in to serve within the same generation as Broodmother, which is why she has the purple symbol. But by the time Anya came in, everyone had already had their daughters, and like our quota for baby girls, which I operate on a quota, that was already filled, so we didn't even get Anya to try for a baby. And then they didn't have daughters to succeed them, and after them, a spare was brought in from one of the other bloodlines, Ciri Dravage, who inherited the role from Anya, and she became the broodmother for Generation 5. So Ciri, she was originally born, I think, a dragon, so of the dragon bloodline, but she had this secret marriage at the beginning of the generation to Emmanuel Savage, and according to vampiric custom, her name was changed from dragon to Dravage, so she's, you know, the Dravage bloodline. But she had 2 daughters. She had twin daughters, Lagatha and Meredith Dravage. Lagatha, as the oldest one, is inheriting her mother's role as broodmother. So she's going to be our Generation 6 broodmother, and then her sister is actually succeeding someone else in another bloodline who didn't get to have any daughters. So she also has a role. Okay, moving on to the champion line. Now this bloodline, there are no black lines here, so nobody in the champion line is connected by blood, unfortunately. There's like no direct lineage, and that's something we love seeing. We love it when we have direct lineages within the court, but the champion line has been a little bit flimsy. So in Generation 4, we had Sol Ranarain as our champion. She inherited the role from her own mother, and the Ranarains, that was one of the other ancient bloodlines who unfortunately died out. So actually, I think the only ancient bloodlines at this point, I think the only ancient bloodlines is the Salazar, so a royal bloodline, and then the cadet branch. So the dragons, the Dravagers, I suppose they all count as ancient bloodlines because they are stemming from the Salazars. And if you're wondering what I mean by ancient bloodline, it is basically the bloodlines that trace back to the original court in Generation 1 with Queen Sheba Salazar, our founder. So the Sims who basically stemmed from those original Sims, they count as the ancient bloodlines. And the scholar at that time, Dark Rana, she never got to have any daughters. She had a bunch of sons, never daughters, so her bloodline died out like in the first generation. Then for a long time we had the Rana Rains and the Cavadors, and then in generation 4 both the Rana Rain and Cavador bloodlines died out. So the royal line is like the only bloodline that we have, along with the cadet branches. So yeah, kind of crazy, but that is that. So anyways, Sol Rana Rain, she had 2 sets of boys. So she had 2 sets of twin sons, and unfortunately she did not have any daughters, so there wasn't a girl to inherit her role. But she died within her generation. She was executed because she's the one who started the rebellion against the queen, in which Rowan got caught up. So Sol was fairly accused as a traitor, Rowan was unfairly accused. And I think Zelda was accused too, but Zelda had like a favor from the queen, so she managed to get herself out of that crap. So Sol was executed, she died, and then Isadora was brought in as the new champion in Generation 4 to replace Sol, which is why she has the purple shield. Now Isadora, by the time she came in, she could not have any children because our quota for girls was already filled. So we had to get a spare from another bloodline to be her successor. And in this case, it was Saphira Dragon. So Saphira was brought in as the successor for Isadora Salazar, and she was our Generation 5 champion. Saphira hates children, so she never had any kids of her own. She was never forced to take part in the breeding or anything like that. And of course, because she didn't have any daughters to succeed her, we had to bring a spare from another bloodline to be her successor. In this case, it was Princess Guinevere Salazar. She is Eden's twin sister who fought the queen 3 times but didn't win, remember? And so, as the loser, she was given to another one of the noble ladies to succeed in their role. So she's going to be our Generation 6 champion. Now we have the Scholar line. So in the Scholar line, Generation 4, we had Oriana Noxa, who inherited the role from her mother. Now, Oriana was originally born a Nox, but she married, I think, Wisteria's brother, Lord Art Salazar, and according to vampiric custom, her name was changed to Noxa. So she had one daughter, Yuki Noxa, and actually Yuki was born a set of twins, so she has a twin brother, or she had a twin brother, who died in a freak accident. He was going home from a party we had at the castle and he burnt up in the sun, which is unfortunate. So Yuki Noxa, she was the only daughter of her mother. She was Scholar in Generation 5. Now Yuki did not hate children, but because she was the youngest, like before we could even get to her to breed, all the other ladies already had daughters. And this generation, we just had 3 sets of twin daughters, so like the quota for girls was filled up. My quota is typically 5 per generation. The 6th one was forced onto me because she was part of a set of multiples. But anyways, Yuki Noxa never got to breed, so she never had a daughter to succeed her. As a result, Meredith Dravage was brought in from the Broodmother line. She was a spare in that line, remember? So she is going to be the Scholar in Generation 6. She is succeeding Yuki. So she's a Dravage, so if you remember the Dravages, if we go back to the Broodmother slide, so Ciri had twin daughters, Lagatha and Meredith. Lagatha is becoming Broodmother, Meredith is the spare, so she's been given over to Yuki to succeed her as the new Scholar. Now we have the Priestess line. So this is what I was talking about in terms of, if you go back to the royal line, you'll see in Generation 4 we had Wisteria, Zelda, Isadora, and I said that Zelda has like this whole family tree of daughters that we're not even putting there. 1, because there's no space there, and 2, because they're not succeeding as queens, so there's no point in tracing the lineage there. Instead, they've branched off into the Priestess line, so we're tracing the lineage here instead. So Generation 4, Zelda was our Priestess. Now she inherited the role, obviously not from her mother because she's from a royal bloodline, she's a Salazar, but I think she inherited from her aunt, Freya Salazar, who never had any daughters. So Zelda was the one to, she was like one of the princesses who didn't win, so she became the priestess. So she had 3 daughters. She had Galaxia and Saphira, a set of twins, and then she had Ciri Dragon. Now the reason why these girls are called dragons instead of Salazars is because they, like I said, are not stemming from the queen, so they're not the queen's daughters. Only the queen's daughters and direct bloodlines get to have the name Salazar. They count as a cadet branch, because even though Zelda's a Salazar, she isn't on the throne, so her daughters, to avoid confusion, have to take on a different name. So the name they took on is Dragon, so this is when the dragon bloodline started. So Galaxia, she, like I said, became priestess. Saphira became the champion in Generation 5, because, you know, the person in Generation 4 didn't have daughters. And then Ciri, she became the Broodmother in Generation 5, because, again, the Broodmother in Generation 4 didn't have daughters to succeed her. Now, Galaxia had, she had twin daughters. She had Catherine and Elaine Dragon. So Catherine is gonna succeed Galaxia as the new priestess. She's the oldest daughter that Galaxia has, so she's gonna be a Generation 6 priestess. Elaine, she's the 6th child out of all the children that were born, and at this point, because all the roles have been filled up, she is going to be sent to Castle Sheba to be the castle keeper in Forgotten Hollow. So she's going to stay there and I suppose serve as a spare until, like, unless one of the ladies dies that are currently serving, and then Elaine's going to be brought in to take over for them. And thank God, because she's evil, but that's what's happening here. Now we go to the Alchemist line. So like I said, the Alchemists are mortals, so we trace things a little bit differently for them. We don't necessarily trace like when they were born per se, like which generation they were born into. We trace which generations they served under. So we have generation 4 to 5, or 4 to 5, generation 5, and then generation 5 to 6. So Angel Valerion, she came at the end of generation 4 into Queen Wisteria, and she served a little bit in generation 5, but then before she even got to her adult birthday, she died. So typically with our mortal mortal alchemists, the spellcasters, what we do is that we don't breed them until they become adults. So Angel never got to have any children because she died, like, I think the day before her adult birthday, which kind of sucks, but hey. Now after her, Mirabella Covenrose was brought in as the alchemist in Generation 5, right? So Mirabella, you don't see her bloodline stemming back, but she is from one of the... I mean, the spellcasters, I never really count the spellcasters as ancient because they were not around in Generation 1. I think they came at the end of Generation 2. But anyways, she comes from a well-known, I guess I should say a legacy bloodline. She comes from a legacy bloodline because they've served for a while. There's been a few in her generation. But Mirabella, and we don't see this because I think Mirabella's own mother, or her aunts and all those kind of things, they weren't, like, they didn't serve necessarily in Generation 4 to 5. They served in the segment before this, which would have been Generation 4. So I'm not counting that because I'm counting the most recent Sims and then 3 generations or 3 half generations back from that. The Alchemist, like I said, we track time a bit differently because they're not immortal. So anyways, Mirabella, she had 2 daughters. She had twin daughters, Xiomara Covenrose and Serana Covenrose, who could not directly replace her within her own, within the generations she served because they were like babies at the time. So Mirabella served for a very short time. She came in as an adult, I think, or she served for a little bit as a young adult. She became an adult, she had her babies, and then she died. So yeah, she managed to continue her bloodline, but she passed on very quickly. Now, after her, we had new blood brought in. So Sofia Valenka was brought in as new blood, and that's why she has the purple symbol. And both Mirabella and Sofia, they served and died within Generation 5, which is why they're in the same kind of segment there. Now, Sofia, we don't have anything traced here, but Sofia did manage to have a daughter. So she had a set of twins, she had a boy and a girl, but it's not tracked here because I don't think, her daughter doesn't fit into 5-6. So after Sofia died, Xiomara was of age, so then Xiomara was brought in as the new Alchemist. So she is currently serving, and she will continue serving in the next generation. And that's why she's under 5-6, because she started serving in Generation 5, and she's going to continue serving in Generation 6. Now, Sofia's daughter does not come under, like, she's not in the same generation as Xiomara and Serana, because in the case right now that Xiomara dies, Sofia's daughter is going to start serving in Generation 6, so she would count in a generation after Xiomara. I hope that makes sense. So that's what's going on here. But that's pretty much it. And I hope that helped. Now, if there was anything that confused you guys, please jump down in the comments and let me know. I will try my best to clarify what I was going on about. But I think that was a decent refresher of the Sims that are currently serving, and how they're related to like the previous generations, or maybe how they're not related. Obviously, if you've been watching the series, we have a lot of like connections as like cousins and aunts and uncles and those kind of things, but they're not tracked here because then we're gonna get confused. And the whole point of this video is to clarify the rules and the bloodlines for you lovelies. But okay, that's it from me. I am going to leave off. This kind of wraps up our Generation 5 playlist. If you guys want to keep track of what's happening for Generation 6 in terms of the castle, then please feel free to jump onto my Patreon. That is typically where I do the updates for that kind of thing, like while we're on the off season for Vampire Amazon. So we'll have no more Vampire Amazon content on the YouTube channel until like I'm ready to start the next generation, which might be a couple months from now. So if you want news, if you want to keep track of like the furnishing videos, so once I haven't even started the castle, but once I get the castle shell built and then I'm ready to start furnishing inside, then I will start putting those videos up on Patreon as well, so you guys can keep track of what's happening with the castle there. And then once all of that's, like once the castle is complete, then obviously I'm going to start doing the cast videos. I'm going to start releasing the cast videos on YouTube to get you guys excited for and prep you guys for the new generation that we're going to be starting. But okay, I'm going to leave off. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.